A man was deeply concerned about his wife. She was only 24 years old, and yet her body had already been wrecked by years of addiction. He could see that she was losing herself little by little, becoming someone completely different. But he wasn't going to let that break her. So he did the one thing that no one else had the courage to do. And just wait until you hear how her reaction when she realized what he had done to save her. Chapter 1. The Unexpected Wedding. The year before the story began, David had met the woman of his dreams, a beautiful young woman named Sarah. The two got along great, and they couldn't get enough of each other. They soon became inseparable, and less than a year later, they decided to get married. It was a beautiful ceremony. David knew he would love Sarah for the rest of his life, but unfortunately, that didn't happen. Just a few months after their wedding, David discovered that Sarah had a dark secret. Chapter 2. A Dark Secret. David was worried because Sarah seemed distracted. At first, he didn't think much of it. After all, she was probably just tired from working so hard as a waitress to put food on the table. But then he started noticing some changes in her. She became more irritable and would often disappear for hours without telling him where she was going. At first, David tried to ignore these issues, but then he found something that changed everything. One evening, David went to Sarah's closet and found a stash of needles and spoons hidden in her underwear drawer. His worst fears had been confirmed. Sarah was a drug addict. He confronted her about it, and she admitted that she had been struggling with addiction for years. She had been clean during their courtship, but the stress of marriage and financial problems had caused her to relapse. David felt betrayed and angry, but mostly he was scared for her. He knew that if she didn't get help, she would eventually overdose and die. Chapter 3. A Difficult Decision. David didn't know what to do. On one hand, he loved Sarah and wanted to support her through her addiction, but he also knew that he couldn't enable her. If he wanted her to get better, he had to be willing to set some boundaries. With heavy heart, he sat Sarah down and told her that he needed her to go to rehab. He promised to pay for treatment and be there for her every step of the way, but made it clear that she would have to get help if she wanted to save their marriage. Chapter 4. Turning Point. For weeks, David didn't hear from Sarah. He assumed that she had gone to stay with her parents. But one day he received a call that changed everything. Sarah was calling to tell him that she had accepted his offer and was ready to go to rehab. Overwhelmed with emotion, David rushed to pick her up and drive her to the clinic. As they drove, Sarah explained that she had been struggling with addiction. Since she was a teenager, she had tried to get clean several times, but always relapsed. This time, however, she was determined to make it work. She wanted to get better not only for herself, but for David, who had been nothing but supportive throughout her ordeal. Chapter 5. A New Life. Rehab was tough, but Sarah was determined to make it work. She attended group therapy sessions and spoke to a counselor about her addiction. She learned about the disease of addiction and how it affected her behavior and relationships. Sarah also began attending Narcotics Anonymous meetings, where she could connect with others who were struggling with addiction. She began to feel like she was finally in control of her life again. After 3 months in rehab, Sarah was ready to return home. She was nervous at first, but David was there to meet her and provide support. Together, they began to rebuild their lives. Sarah found a new job and began volunteering at a local animal shelter. She also continued to attend Narcotics Anonymous meetings and her sponsor. She was so grateful to David for his love and support during this difficult time. Chapter 6. A Shocking Discovery. A year had passed since Sarah had returned home from rehab. She was feeling good about her progress and was confident that she had beaten her addiction. However, one day she noticed that David seemed distant and withdrawn. He was spending long hours at work and didn't seem to want to talk to her. Concerned, Sarah decided to confront him. She sat David down and asked him what was wrong. He hesitated at first, but eventually confessed that he had been struggling with depression. Sarah was shocked. She had no idea that David was struggling and felt bad that she hadn't noticed the signs. She hugged him and told him that he could talk to her about anything. She also suggested that he seek professional help, but he declined, saying that he didn't need it. Chapter 7. A Moment of Truth. Weeks passed, and David's depression only seemed to worsen. Sarah was worried, but she didn't know what to do. One day she found a bottle of pills in David's medicine cabinet. She confronted him about it, and he admitted that he had been taking them to help him sleep. Sarah was furious. She had thought that David was making progress, but it seemed like he was still struggling. She told him that he needed to get help, and this time he agreed. Chapter 8. Facing Reality. David checked himself into a psychiatric hospital for treatment. Sarah was relieved that he was finally getting the help he needed. She visited him often and provided support. David was released from the hospital a few weeks later and began seeing a therapist. He also started taking medication for his depression. Sarah was glad that he was taking steps to get better, but she knew that it would take time. Chapter 9. A Surprising Revelation. As the months passed, David began to improve. He started attending therapy sessions and taking his medication regularly. He also began exercising and eating healthier. Sarah was thrilled to see him getting better. She could see that he was finally starting to enjoy life again. One day, Sarah was going through some old photo albums when she came across a picture of her and David on their wedding day. She smiled as she remembered how happy she had been. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her. "What are you doing?" She turned around to see David standing there with a confused expression on his face. I was just looking at some old photos," Sarah replied. David walked over and looked at the picture. "It was a beautiful day," he said softly. Sarah nodded. "It was," she agreed. There was a moment of silence between them as they both looked at the picture. Then David turned to Sarah and said, "Thank you." Confused, Sarah asked, "For what?" David took a deep breath. "For saving me," he said. Sarah was taken aback. "What do you mean?" she asked. David looked into her eyes and said, "You saved me from myself. I was so lost in my own darkness that I couldn't see the light. But you never gave up on me. You believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I owe you my life, Sarah." Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as she hugged David tightly. "Oh David," she whispered, "I love you." Chapter 10, A New Beginning. In the end, Sarah was able to transform her life and become the woman she was meant to be. After going through so much hardship and pain, she finally found happiness and peace. But it wasn't easy. It took a lot of hard work, dedication, and most importantly, love. Love from herself and those around her. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more just like it, please don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of our next upload. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.